Russia just restarted production of an airliner the West wrote off as obsolete decades ago. It's called the IL-96-400M, and it might be the most important plane nobody outside Russia is talking about. This aircraft carries 0 Western parts. No Boeing, no Airbus, no nothing. By the end of this video, you'll understand why a sanctioned country is betting its entire long-haul future on it. The story starts back in 1988, when the original IL-96 first flew from Kadinka Aerodrome in Moscow. Test pilot Stanislav Bliznyuk was at the controls, flying an aircraft designed entirely inside the Soviet Union. It was a shortened, more advanced version of the IL-86, the USSR's first ever wide-body jet. Certification came in 1992, right after the Soviet collapse, and Aeroflot began flying it in 1993. Back then, the IL-96-300 carried 250 to 300 passengers, roughly the same class as a Boeing 777-200. It flew Aeroflot's most prestigious routes: Moscow to Havana, Moscow to San Francisco, real flagship long-haul missions. But by 2014 and 2015, Aeroflot retired its IL-96-300s entirely, switching to Airbus A330s and Boeing 777s instead. The only reason the aircraft survived at all was the Russian state, which kept ordering VIP versions for government use. The IL-96-300 became Vladimir Putin's primary presidential aircraft, operated by Russia Airlines Special Flight Detachment. So for years, this plane basically existed as a museum piece with a presidential exception. Then everything changed in 2022, and here's exactly why. After Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine, Boeing and Airbus completely cut off new aircraft, parts, and support to Russian airlines. The US, UK, EU, and other countries imposed sweeping aviation sanctions, banning exports of planes, components, and maintenance services. Russia responded by nationalizing roughly 500 foreign-owned aircraft that happened to be sitting on its soil when sanctions hit. With no legal way to buy new Western jets or spare parts, Russian airlines turned to a gray market of parallel imports. Aeroflot has reportedly started disassembling some of its own Boeing 737 and 747 just to harvest spare parts. By mid-2026, Bloomberg and Aerotime reported around 19% of Russia's commercial fleet was grounded from part shortages. At S7 Airlines specifically, roughly 1/3 of the fleet wasn't flying at one point due to maintenance bottlenecks. Aeroflot itself was relatively more insulated, thanks to a bigger in-house technical base and expanded engine repair capability from 2025. But the long-term math is brutal. A foreign-built fleet meant to last decades is shrinking, with no Western replacement allowed. So Russia had one option left: build its own widebody, entirely on its own territory. That's where the IL-96-400M comes in. And this version is not the same old plane from 1988. Engineers stretched the fuselage from 55.35 meters to 64.69 meters, adding a section ahead of the wing. That stretch pushes capacity up to around 370 passengers in a 3-class layout, or as many as 436 in an all-economy setup. Maximum range sits at roughly 10,000 kilometers with a typical passenger load, enough for genuine intercontinental routes. Every single one of these airframes is built in exactly one place: the Voronezh Aircraft Production Association, known as VASO. VASO was founded on 1 March 1932 during Soviet industrialization, and it's still the only IL-96 assembly line on Earth. In 2024, Russian trade press reported VASO completed a fuselage assembly stage in its fastest cycle in recent years, about 3 months. That matters because for decades this factory was painfully slow, sometimes producing just 1 or 2 airframes per decade. Now let's talk about the engines, because this is where Russia's independence really gets tested. Every IL-96-400M runs on 4 Aviation PS-90A1 engines, rated at around 17,400 kilograms of thrust each. These engines are designed in Perm and physically built at the Perm motor plant, both owned by the state's United Engine Corporation. The PS-90 family is described in Russian industry reporting as the country's only modern high-bypass turbofan built at real serial numbers. Perm has struggled with production speed for years, and UEC has poured investment into modernizing the plant since 2014. Newer engines like the PD-14 and PD-35 are in development there too, but neither has entered full commercial service yet. So the entire IL-96-400M program leans on one engine plant that is still catching up to demand. Flight testing of the IL-96-400M prototype began in late 2023, flying out of a Voronezh airfield. The Russian government has since placed firm orders for serial production, something that hadn't happened at real scale in decades. Aeroflot is expected to be the first major customer, alongside Rossiya Airlines and other state-controlled carriers. Don't expect to see this plane outside Russia, though it can't get ESA certification under current political conditions. And on pure economics, it can't compete with an Airbus A330neo or Boeing 787 on fuel burn or noise. Not even close. But those Western aircraft are exactly what Russia can no longer buy, maintain, or certify at scale. So the comparison doesn't matter. There's a bigger backstory here too, and it explains why Russia had no other card left to play. Russia originally planned a joint widebody with China called the CR-929, launched in 2017 between UAC and China's COMAC. It was meant to directly rival the Boeing 787 and Airbus A330neo on the global market. But by June 2023, COMAC effectively pushed Russia out of the program after Western sanctions made joint development impossible. The aircraft got rebranded as the COMAC C929, developed with Chinese-only suppliers, leaving Russia with nothing from that partnership. That collapse is exactly why the IL-96-400M isn't really trying to compete globally anymore. It's a national lifeline instead. It's the only widebody Russia can build completely on its own soil, with its own engines, its own avionics, its own everything. The same self-reliance push is happening with the Irkut MC-21 narrowbody and the already flying Superjet 100 regional jet. Outside Russia, there's really only one commercial operator left flying the older IL-96 at all. That's Cubana de Aviación, Cuba's flag carrier, which runs 3 IL-96-300s on routes to Mexico City and parts of Europe. One of those 3 spent about 16 months grounded for maintenance in Belarus, before returning to service in late 2023. That single detail says everything about how hard it is to keep this aircraft flying without direct Russian engineering support. So the IL-96-400M isn't about winning the global widebody market. It's about Russia refusing to be grounded by anyone else's sanctions. If you want to see how the Superjet 100 became Russia's other sanctions-proof aircraft, that story is one video away. Go watch it next.